Hello everybody, my name is Tiffany. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about queues. We're going to be talking about what a queue is and how I'm using it. And then I'm going to show you the code I use to implement it. And I'm also going to show you how to set up that queue to run on Heroku. So let's go. All right, so what is a queue anyway? Generally, a queue, in the sense that I'm using it, I'm using a Laravel queue, and it can also be referred to as a job as well. And what that's going to do is it's basically something that you need to run in the background because it may take up a lot of time to process that data, or it could be something that you want to run at a certain time every single day, which is how I'm going to be using it. So that brings me to the next part, which is how I'm using it is I have the music quiz app, which I've talked about in several videos now. Check it out if you haven't. Link is below, also in the description. Essentially, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to shuffle the songs up every single week so that when you visit the URL, you don't see the same songs every single time. Previously, I was using an endpoint to do that. Now I want to utilize that same endpoint, but just add a job to it so that I can perform that more feasibly. All right, so the code, let's go to the code breakdown. And even in the code breakdown, I'm going to show you how at the end of this, I'm going to show you how you can schedule this in Heroku and set that up so that you can have that go in there too. So for the code, so I'm going to start out by writing a command or making the command itself, which is just the job. And that's what it's going to be called. So I make job and I'm calling it shuffle songs. And inside here, I'm just going to delete some stuff I don't need because I'm not going to use that. And essentially, I'm going to have a blank canvas and I'm just going to say, hey, new song controller, because I have already an endpoint for this. I have the index endpoint of song controller, and that's essentially what I'm doing now. I'm just saying, hey, song controller class, index, method, go. And inside there, it's going to do everything for me, which we talked about in another video. So I'll link that above. Okay, so once we've gotten there, I'm going to go into my kernel. And this is going to be the console. This is how the jobs get run. So I'm going to schedule the job here. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to schedule that shuffle song class weekly. And I'm going to schedule it for the time zone of the current time zone that I'm in, which is America Chicago's time zone. So I've got that going for me. This tells it to run every week at a specific time. I think weekly is Sunday at 12 or midnight. So that's happening here. That's locally though. We're going to change this a little bit in Heroku. So since I'm doing that, I'm going to delete the songs truncate off of the songs controller class because I don't need that anymore. And now I'm going to make a test called the shuffle jobs test. And this is just going to be a quick test to just validate the behavior and make sure that it's actually doing what I said it was going to do. So that's being created. I'm going to go to that class, that job, I'm going to go to the test is what I'm going to do. All right, this is just going to be, I'm naming the test right now, and then we'll get into the body of what the test is actually going to do. This is probably the hardest part of anything. It's just the test. Okay, so it's basically, I'm going to add the schedule class here, calling the schedule class so that I can schedule this, like pretend to schedule it because this is a test. So I'm pretending to schedule this. I'm writing in some comments here, defining the job schedule, which is going to be what we wrote in kernel for it to run weekly. And then the next thing we need to do is we'll need to retrieve the job itself or retrieve the scheduled job. And that's going to include all the contents of when the job is supposed to be scheduled and what time the job is supposed to be scheduled. I'm not writing a test right now on the actual endpoint, because I already have a test for that goes through and does all that good stuff. So this is just specifically for the job. So right now it's just like schedule job, the name of the job itself, which is shuffle songs. And then again, it's the weekly time zone, the current time zone. So I'm essentially just setting this up. And then here I'm going to do the assertions for the test. So this is going to say, hey, make sure that actually, before I do the assertions, I'm going to retrieve the actual scheduled job, which is a scheduled event, which means something is happening. So if something is happening, that means that job has run. So it's at this point, I want to just make some assertions on when that job was run, and the time zone as well. So it's just basic tests, just so that I could see proof of concept. Is it working locally? So I'm just going to add those assertions in here now. Okay, and that expression that you see is what I'm doing now is doing a little debugging for the info part. It's going to debug, it's going to output some data in a log for me so that I could actually see what's being returned from that schedule event, because I didn't just know that the expression I'm looking for is that 00***0. I actually had to debug for that. So I'm just showing you right now. And then I'm going to add this other assertion for the time zone. And then I'll go back and it's going to be a quick debug statement that we're going to see. Again, this is just proof of concept. Does it work in a test and not fail? And so that we have our bases covered in test cases. All right, so I'm going back and I'm actually going to add a comment to this test. It had like the default text in there, and I just want to give it some more context on the test. And I also want to say @test so that it runs when I run my test. So there it goes. It passed, so that's good. And here is the log statement that has the expression that I received back. So we kind of know, hey, that expression actually is like a weekly scheduled run. Now I'm in Heroku, so I'm going to add the Cron to Go scheduler to this. It's an add-on. It does cost money. That's why I'm only going to run this weekly. I don't want to incur a bunch of expenses here. So I've already got a job. I'm just going to show you what it looks like. So I gave it a name. The rate that I'm doing is every 7 days here. Of course, if you do this, you have to add the job first. And then I did the start time as May 4th, and that's actually 7 p.m. So it's not midnight. And before I do this, I'm going to make sure to delete all the data and then bring the data back up. And then I'm going to run that artisan schedule run command, which will run all the scheduled commands. And since this is scheduled to run, it will then say, hey, this job is ready to go. It's in the queue. Let's run it. So it'll run that for me. And then I'm also showing you the logs that I use. Again, I ran this a few days ago. So basically here you can see it's dropping all the tables and it's creating that migrations table. And then it's running all of the other migrations, which is adding all the tables. And then it's running that job. You see the shuffle songs job I've highlighted here. So it's running that job. So it's working, which means it sees this event is ready to go and it's loading it onto the queue and it's going to perform the job. So that's it. That is the gist of how to do this. It's pretty straightforward, to the point. The only thing that I figured was a little bit trippy is how to make this work in Heroku. So I decided to kind of add that on here because I wanted to know too. Hope you enjoyed this video, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, drop them down below. And if you also have any recommendations for content that you'd like to see from me, just let me know. Thanks for watching. And in the meantime, take care of yourself and be kind to others. See y'all.